to The Basics of Life. My name's Ken Burkey, and Scott Center is in the house. And if we had a studio audience, I'm sure you'd get a standing ovation.
Exactly.
But,
there's no one here.
Yeah, we offered free tickets.
Yeah, but I slept good here tonight, waiting for you guys to come in. It was nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad. You show up, and Scott's been waiting. He's got his little sleeping bag.
The world needs to hear me.
Yes. Yes. We are desperate to hear from you, Scott. So what we decided to do today, instead of an interview, is we're going to do karaoke. So,
what song are you going to sing?
Oh,
I'll do a rendition of Back in Black. But
yeah. Well, now you'd sound good in that.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. This is an important topic, so
right.
I will let you set this topic up.
Okay, so wife and I are out to eat a couple weeks ago, and as we're leaving the establishment, we had met somebody coming into the establishment for food that we knew. So we got in this conversation with them. And my posture was I had my back towards the door, and I was talking to them in the restaurant, and I was leaning up against the door, and I had my hands behind me as if I was going to push off the door when the conversation's done and leave. So I got distracted in the conversation, and just as I'm about to leave, just before that, the door opens, and in walks this little 5-year-old girl, which I didn't know. Simultaneously, as she steps in front of the door and the door's starting to close, I push back to leave. My hand caught her head and pushed her head into the door.
Awesome. Awesome. When did the cops arrive?
Exactly. And I was like devastated. I turned to the parents immediately and was like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Because it was, I felt ashamed.
Yeah,
here's Pastor Scott smashing kids' heads.
I'm embarrassed. Should we even do this show? I don't know.
So anyway, this little kid, while I'm apologizing, grabs me by the arm. She's pulling down on it to get my attention. She's only 4 years old. She looks up and she goes, "That's okay. I forgive you."
Aww.
And then she just went on to her day like nothing ever happened, free as a lark.
See, that's a better girl than I would. I would have just been bitter.
She was amazing. And the reason why that story is has such poignancy with me is that it's a great picture of forgiveness.
Right.
And the power of it.
Right.
And so, this forgiveness issue is a big deal in our day. And it seems like kids have a little more easier grasp on the power of it than humans do.
Yeah. Forgiveness. It's one of those amazing gifts, but it's hard to go there sometimes.
It's very hard, especially when you've had monumental things happen to you,
right.
the things that are just huge that have been violations of your person or your esteem or
right.
whatever. Those are really hard to forgive. But we can't take away that there's a lot of little things that have same power over us if we let them go unforgiven. Like,
right.
Right. Little stuff like my brother didn't invite me to, this party or whatever the case may be. These if they build up over time, they can also cause great damage in our life as well.
Yeah, so it's hard when someone says, well, you just need to forgive.
Very hard.
But it's really more the perspective of forgiveness is really a gift.
Absolutely.
For us. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that.
Okay, so we're going to get a lot of help today from an author who just wrote a great book called The Art of Forgiving. It's Lewis Smedes. And he has this process that we need to work through. Mm-hmm. And the first one is the process of healing, or the process of forgiveness starts with hurt. Mm-hmm. Now, that might seem real simple to a lot of people, but a lot of times we don't acknowledge or embrace the hurt. We try to surpass it.
Right.
Or we think if we go there, it's unproductive.
Right.
Or some of us, if we think we go there, we can't handle the emotion. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times where we pass over the hurt, then when we move on with life, even if we thought to ourselves we've forgiven, we haven't really embraced true forgiveness because we haven't acknowledged the hurt.
That's good. I think too, maybe if you're a person of faith, you can feel guilty, like, well, I just need to forgive and not go there. Like if I go there, that means something's wrong.
Correct.
Rather than really feeling the pain.
Right. And just going and acknowledging, even calling it out, said, okay, that person lied to me, that person did this to me, that really hurt, and it's okay to feel that way.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think sometimes we don't want to forgive because we think that means we're excusing what that person did to us.
Correct, and it's not.
But when you're there, you're saying, no, what they did was wrong.
Correct, absolutely correct. So that's part of getting a good grasp of what forgiveness looks like. Now quickly from that point, after we acknowledge hurt, there is a crossroads that we come to. And the crossroads has to do with two emotions. One is hate, one is anger. Now, we can't mistake anger for hate. Anger is actually a God-given emotion, and when applied appropriately, it's healthy. For instance, if someone has done an injustice to me, I should be angry at that injustice because anger should motivate me to try to right the injustice.
Right.
That's a good emotion. Hate says, I'm either going to go for it myself and get revenge, eye for an eye, or I'm going to harbor bitterness in my heart and demean that person for the rest of their life. That's the danger of those two emotions. Anger brings us to an appropriate fixing of justice. Hate seeds bitterness into our life, which bitterness is a really bad thing for all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting that the path and the gift of forgiveness starts with hurt and anger.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because both those emotions are real emotions that God installed in us.
Right.
But people run from them.
So what I'm thinking is there's a lot of pseudo forgiveness out there. It's not real forgiveness.
Correct.
We think we're doing the right thing.
Right.
We're going, well, I don't want to be angry, and I'm just going to pretend it didn't hurt.
Right.
I'm going to forgive, and it sounds righteous, and it sounds good, but it doesn't lead anywhere.
No. As a matter of fact, you can hide bitterness a long time, but it will come up eventually. It's interesting scripture in the Bible. It says, watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. Now, it's interesting that word corrupt, because the word corrupt means to change or debase, making alterations. So if this is true, if we're corrupted by bitterness, it corrupts everything, our personality, the way we do life, how we see life. It corrupts, our perspective of life, our thoughts, our emotions. Then if we're living in a perpetual state of bitterness, then the people we're living with really don't even know the real you.
Yeah. Wow.
Because they're not experiencing you.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff, man.
Yeah.
So again, let's just this is important to go, okay, if the gift is forgiveness, the Bible says to forgive, forgiveness sets us free.
Right.
All of that. Jesus forgives. It starts with hurt. We have to feel the hurt.
Correct.
And don't go to hatred, but go to anger.
Anger, which is anger at the the injustice.
Right.
Not to take revenge on it, but anger at the injustice. Anger should motivate us to set appropriate boundaries, because consequences do need to happen for deeds that are done.
Right.
So it should motivate us in that direction as opposed to the hate direction. They're different, but it sometimes feels the same.
Right.
Which brings us to the third stage, which is healing. Now, healing is an internal process, and I want to make that very clear. Healing is about the individual who's hurt. It's not necessarily about the individual who's done the deed.
Right.
It's about you correcting what's going on inside. It's about you letting go of bitterness, letting go of revenge, not allowing that to create great bondage for your life.
Right.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So the way we do that is first, and this is a difficult one, is we try to understand where that person is coming from. Now that's tough, because sometimes when we do that, it's not a pretty thing, but it's a hard thing.
Yeah. But it's again, it's not to say what they did was okay, but it's to understand, because there is healing in that.
Correct.
The line hurt people.
Correct.
That's huge.
Right. And so it helps us with a perspective.
Right.
It's not easy.
No.
But we need to try to understand first where the person was coming to, which would lead us.
Well, let me just add on to that, because I think there's been times where people have hurt me, but it wasn't personal.
Right.
It was I was the right person at the right time. I was in the way of whatever it was. Sometimes you can, and it allowed me to have some perspective of, hey, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I was the person that person was going to vent to. It could have been another person, but I was in that role.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I mean, sometimes people do stuff and it's at you.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on in their life.
Right. Again, it's not excusing it, like you said, but it is that perspective, so you're not taking it so personal.
Right.
Like I'm a bad person, or and all that. So.
Right. So this is like this is one of those steps of letting it go. It's letting it go, you know. The second step is actually, it's from the Bible, and it is the spiritual discipline of letting go of hate, revenge, and those things, and that is to pray for them.
Yeah.
Now that's a toughie.
Yeah.
You're going to pray for a violator.
Yeah.
What you're praying for is their redemption, their conviction of their heart to right themselves. You're not praying that they don't experience consequences.
Right. Right.
When you do that, it's a spiritual discipline of letting go of that revenge, that hate, because all that does, that hate stuff, is corrupts your heart. So it may be choking out a prayer.
Yeah.
Like, God, I really don't know what to say right now, but
Yeah.
I hate this person, you know, but
Yeah.
I need not to. Help
Yeah.
me.
Be honest.
Be honest, yeah.
Okay, so thanks a lot for this show. This gift of forgiveness starts with feeling the hurt,
Yep.
being angry,
Right.
understanding the other, trying to understand the other person, and praying for them.
Right, exactly. Now,
Wow.
there's one more step in this one, and then there's this last thing, but there's one more step is, when we do this, when we make these practices, there's a connection between forgiving others and learning to forgive ourselves. If we can't forgive ourselves, then we tend to hold other people
Yeah.
to revenge or, you know, accountable for things that we ourselves are not.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's the process as you let go of hating or revenging or trying to hurt someone else, then hopefully you're starting to understand, I need to learn to forgive myself for things I've done, because nobody's perfect here.
Right.
We've all violated somebody some way, intentionally or unintentionally.
Right.
So this whole process works to good to heal the heart and flush the bitterness out, flush the anger, so that I can move on like the little girl with the dee-dah day, you know,
Right.
just walking along.
Right. Right. Wow. You know, going back to that corruption scripture that you talked about,
Yeah.
corrupt, that if we don't do this, then this bitterness becomes our identity.
Correct.
And then it becomes addicting, and we don't even know how to live without that feeling.
You're not your true self.
Yeah.
If you allow bitterness to stay there, you are not your true self.
Wow.
And that's what was very profound to me, is learning that, you know.
So it sounds to me like forgiveness is really a process, and it's an ongoing process. It's
Correct.
not just a
It's
I
not a
forgive
one-day
and
thing, yeah.
move on.
Matter of fact, some people, based on the depth of the violation, might have to make a choice to forgive each day.
Right. Like for the little girl, she forgave and forgot. It's
Right.
like, and sometimes you can.
You can't.
It's not
yeah.
a big, but some violations you will never forget.
Right.
So it's a daily decision to sometimes, you know, that hurt's going to be there.
Right. It's
And-
just, you got to make a choice each day to let it go, or else it will change you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go.
Okay, so the last point
Yeah.
is this, is when we do this, there's something interesting that happens, because forgiveness is a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
It definitely comes from God, and it's an amazing thing. When we do it, the possibilities of reconciliation, it creates an environment for the relationship to be reconciled. Now, it doesn't always happen.
Right. Right.
And there's there's a distinction between forgiveness and reconciliation. I want to make that clear. Forgiveness takes one, reconciliation takes two. Forgiveness has no strings attached. Reconciliation has strings attached,
Right.
because trust has to be earned back.
Right.
Forgiving does not mean I have to enter into the relationship again, even if the person makes amends.
Right.
Because sometimes it's not even advisable to get
Right.
back into the relationship, because that relationship was violent, or it was in violation of my, human being, so to speak.
Right.
But when you do forgive, it creates an environment for reconciliation to take place. If you don't choose to forgive, then there is no possibility
Right.
for reconciliation.
Right.
That's the miracle of forgiveness. And people who have been violated to the nth degree have created an environment where some miracles have taken place.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing too, when you see people there are people who have figured out forgiveness,
Right.
and they've been hurt deeply, and there's a freedom about them. And then you see people who have not been hurt deeply, but they've chosen not to forgive, and it's petty stuff.
Right.
And they're just in bondage.
Right. And they're miserable.
Yeah.
It's that back to the corruption thing. They're
Yeah.
not their real self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. It's And I know you talked about this in a message, but Jesus on the cross said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. He understood.
Right.
He understood their depravity, their brokenness, and he had been violated, denied, betrayed, beaten, an unfair trial. He had so many reasons to just be bitter.
Right. And he chooses in the most desperate moment, in the most hurtful moment, to choose to forgive. So even though his body was dying a tragic death, his spirit was free.
Right.
I mean, he led the way on this.
Yeah. So what would you, to kind of wrap this up, what would you say to someone sitting out there? What are some steps people can take? Because this is hard to do alone.
Absolutely.
So I would say the first step is don't try to navigate this alone.
Right. That's a great step. Partnership with people, share maybe with a trusted friend or some spiritual advisor that you're comfortable with, and just kind of share, hey, this happened to me, and call it out.
Right.
Don't minimize it.
Right.
Call it out.
Right.
That's the first step.
Yeah, and make sure it's somebody who really wants to help you through this, because sometimes we can just get pity party friends.
Yeah.
And then, it just perpetuates the bitterness but somebody who can really help you through this.
Yeah, that helps move you along the path. I think the next little simple practice is that the Bible would challenge us to practice to pray for them.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one.
Yeah.
But God honors those kinds of prayers. He will take care of the violator, but he will heal you. He honors that kind of stuff. He'll heal you, even if you choke it out and I don't really feel like doing this, but I'm going to try it.
No, and let's talk about that just for a moment.
Yeah.
Honest prayers. God can take honest prayers.
Yeah, he's not afraid of them.
No eloquent prayers, no trying to sound spiritual. Just tell God exactly how you feel.
Right.
Those are huge.
Yep.
So have someone kind of navigate with you.
Right.
And pray.
Right.
Any last thought?
Well, I have there's this little illustration that's just to take this home. Do you know how heavy this is? How many fluid ounces are in there?
Is it 16?
16.9.
Oh.
So, but the weight doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And let me explain that. I mean, if I hold this water jug, if I try to hold it for 10 minutes, I could do that. If I try to hold it for an hour, my arm's going to ache. If I try to hold it for 3 hours, I probably could because I'm really strong.
Steroids. We'll talk about that next show.
But if I try to hold it for a day, you're going to have to cut my arm off.
Yeah.
There's no way to do it. So the weight doesn't matter. It's how long you choose to hold it.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with bitterness.
Yeah, that's great.
It's not how big the bitterness or how little the bitterness or the violation. The longer I choose to hold it, the more it will change my life and bring me pain.
It's good.
So that's what I would just say. Start the process. It might be mechanical.
Yeah.
It might have no emotion but anger or hate filled behind it. But when you start the process, you start to chip away at that bitterness that's been corrupting, your heart.
And just to review, I think it's just very counterintuitive, even in the church world, which sometimes in the church world we just tell people to forgive.
Right.
But in order to forgive, you have to feel the hurt.
Yep.
You have to feel the anger.
Yep.
Don't go to hate, but go to the anger of the violation.
Correct.
And then go towards the healing, which is prayer and what was the other one?
Trying to understand.
Trying to understand them.
Yeah. And forgiving yourself.
And then forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
And then it goes down to just making it a daily decision.
A daily decision, a daily choice. And it will be a journey. You'll start here, and it'll feel weird. The destination is here, so you have to make it a choice each day. And someday, you'll get to the place where the pain is not so big and the bitterness has no roots.
And I think it can become addicting in a good way. Once you begin to experience that freedom of forgiveness, it's like, well, I don't ever want to go back to bitterness.
Right.
And it'll make us better at being forgivers in the future.
Right?
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Great topic.
Yeah.
Great topic. We have 22 seconds left, so now we're going to karaoke.
Yeah.
We're gonna, no, thanks, Scott. That's very, very powerful.
Right
and thanks for being with us here on the Basics of Life, and we'll see you next time.